I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and especially domestic.
It's becoming more violent down here.
60% of all narcotics come into the country through this sector right here.
Weed, meth, heroin, all kinds of stuff.
Human trafficking.
Child trafficking.
There is a part of it that not a lot of people hear about.
We're losing, 44 people a day from fentanyl overdoses? If it gets through here, it's going to every city USA. The guys that are running the show over there have no regard for human life.
They control everything. It's all money to them.
If we stop the flow, then we've made an impact.
Go ahead, pull Romeo 1. They're about 3 miles out. They're sitting at a crossroads trying to make this corner with this big old truck.
Are they still moving in that direction towards Baby's Head, over?
Negative. They're posted up and they're pointing in that direction. They're all just kind of staged right now.
What we're playing is 3 games all rolled into one. The first game is hide and seek, because if we go into an area like this, they'll start moving, and then it turns into a chess match. Me putting my pieces in front of their pieces to block their movements. Then it turns into a game of whack-a-mole. You hit them here and they pop up here. You hit them there and they pop up here. And so you repeat the process all over again.
They caught fresh tracks over the top of ours. Going that way back there. My thought was, he may be the lookout for someone setting up on the vehicles.
What's done here is to protect America. It's not because we don't like our neighbors to the south. We don't know who's coming in with what.
These operations are clean and professional and not a bunch of cowboys.
We have to operate within the Arizona statutes of self-defense. We can't run around pointing guns at people and handcuff folks. It's not what we're about.
We don't mistreat people. We give them food, water, medical aid till Border Patrol gets here, but then we turn them over to them.
The trees, I've heard about them. I've finally seen one. Wow, what happened right here?
Terrible crimes against humanity, crimes against women, and yeah, it doesn't set well.
This is just part of life out here. It's violent, it's brutal.
You're a target.
The news, I think, a lot of times fails to portray what's actually happening here.
I think the media is full of shit, and they promote false news all the time.
This is a full-time job. You gotta show consistency, dedication. You have to earn to patch.
What the group stands for is I believe in with all my heart.
Say our border's secure, but it's not.
There's no wall, there's no barrier. The barrier is these mountains.
Obviously, this is just a small part of it, but you gotta start somewhere.
We'll still be out here, disrupt to block, until we don't need to be anymore.
There is no easy fix. Regardless of how you do it, you're gonna piss somebody off.
Hello, American Patriots. Welcome to another episode of the Douglas Ducote Show. Very happy and blessed that you're with us tonight. We have a wonderful show we're planning on bringing to you. Before I get into that, let me just talk briefly about the impeachment process that's going on right now. Look, those of you that have been following this, you probably have already figured it out by now. It's a complete and total sham. Listen, do not let what the Democrats are doing affect how you move forward towards 2020. In fact, if anything, it should be forcing you to want to get more actively engaged. I can't stress enough how making sure you contact all of your members of Congress, not just in your own state, both sides, Democrat and Republicans, contact them, email them, Twitter, Facebook, look up their actual website, get their phone number, call them, express your concerns, but do the same thing to the leaders, Nancy Pelosi, Chuck Schumer, Jerry Nadler, Shifty Schiff. Let them hear from you. All right? President Trump right now needs us on board. Now, listen, I don't care what you think of President Trump. What I do care about is if he does not get reelected in 2020, we will become, at least for the time that the next Democrat is in office, a socialist country. If you listen to what's being said by those that are running to be the nominee to go up against Trump, your guns are going, the border walls are coming down. It's going to be a nightmare. They won't free everything. There's no money to pay for it. So reach out to your members of Congress every single day and every opportunity you get between now and 2020. So tonight's show, we're going to continue our discussion on the border with U.S. and Mexico. And we're going to dig a little bit deeper into this, the tangled web of immigration laws that we face here at home. We talk a little bit about, our solution. As you know, we've been focused on investigating, documenting, exposing, and showing you exactly what is actually happening down there. There are some on social media that will tell you that it's not a problem and that people like me are making it up. Well, if you watched my videos and you watched at least part 1, 2, and 3 of the documentary we have out right now, you would know that they're wrong. So those that are saying that there's no problem, they're on the left. And sadly, they happen to be members of Congress on the Democrat Party or in the Democrat Party. We're building a team of allies which consists of angel parents, veterans, law enforcement officers, and American patriots like yourself. All right. We need everyone to come together to help us as we move forward with our solutions. And this is something that has to be done now. It can't wait. Just today, I saw a brief thing that popped up on breaking news with CNN and Fox and MSNBC. Everybody had it all at once. How the Pentagon is looking at sending an additional 7,000 troops to the Middle East. That's great. I tell you what, we need that sent to our border because our border agents are doing without. They're understaffed. Law enforcement along the border is understaffed. And the president has the authority to do that, and he needs to do it immediately. We cannot basically just put a Band-Aid on a bleeding wound. We have to fix the problem. And that can be done. It can be done before 2020, the election, that is. We are pushing for a meeting with President Trump so that we can show him our short presentation of not just the problems, but the solutions that we have developed, such as the terror block system, and also our thought on the National Guard involvement and how we can circumvent those states, like, for instance, California, that said we're not sending our people down there. There is a way that that can be done. So tonight's show is going to focus on all of that. The first segment of the show, we will have Don Barrett. He is a fellow at the Center for Immigration Studies. He has studied refugee policy for over 25 years. His articles on U.S. refugee and asylum policies have appeared in the National Review, Christian Science Monitor, Wall Street Journal, Europe, the Washington Times, New York Newsday, the Federalist, Chronicles, and elsewhere. His work has been used in U.S. State Department and New York State government reports and in Fox News reporting. And then in segment 2 tonight, we're going to have on Tim Foley of Arizona Border Recon. Tim and his team are amazing patriots, have been fighting illegal immigration on the front lines for over a decade. Tim and his team are on the border in Arizona. They're armed. They're doing a great job. They're helping our border agents. They're doing the work that our government has the ability to do, and they're not doing. Okay, so I've met Tim in person up in Washington, D.C. Great guy. We've had him on before, and he will be in the second segment of tonight's show. So we got a great lineup. I hope that you will stay with us as we dive deeper into what is happening on the border with Mexico. And not only do we want to expose this because the mainstream media is not, but we have a solution to the problem, and we need your help in pushing that to our members of Congress and all the way up to 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue. So we're going to take a short break, and we'll be right back with our first guest, Mr. Don Barnett.
How do they choose which localities get the refugees? It seems like we have an overload of refugees in 2 places, Maine and Minneapolis, St. Paul. And it's kind of the same latitude. And the maniacs and the Minnesota people, they're wild. I don't understand those people. I mean, I love them, but they're kind of a little crazy. That's why I like them. But I mean, it's right. A lot there, and there are a lot of Somalis in both places. Omaha has a lot. Northern Virginia has quite a few refugees. Do they throw a dart at the map? I mean, how do they figure this out?
Well, basically, it's run by private nonprofits, and they set up shop, in effect, where welfare is the most generous, where jobs are available and housing is cheap. Now, in the case of Maine, most of the refugees that are in Maine arrived there after they arrived somewhere else. Maybe they first arrived in Atlanta, and then they moved to Maine because it was better. Maine, interestingly enough, is a state that has tried to get out of refugee resettlement. And has officially withdrawn.
They don't want any part of it. We got problems with welfare, gangs, housing, huge cost to the state.
Right.
And I'm sorry to interrupt here, but when you think about the refugees from, let's say, Northern Africa, and they're relocated to Minnesota or Maine or wherever the Catholic Charities or whatever Catholic or Lutheran group they're getting money from the feds, and they're assimilation has got to be a little bit trying in certain states and certain climates, correct?
Yes, it's a very big issue, and the engagement with the refugee is very short, 3 to 8 months, and it's simply inadequate. There is no assimilation. Assimilation is, as a matter of fact, not in the lexicon anymore. There's not even an attempt. They don't even pay lip service to assimilation.
Yeah, the idea.
And we are back with Mr. Don Barnett, a fellow at the Center of Immigration Studies. Sir, thank you very much for joining us tonight to help us continue bringing to the American patriots of this country what's happening down there on the border.
Good to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Can you give us, I guess let's start with a brief history of what the refugee program is actually about, because I can assure you that most of America doesn't have a clue about this refugee program.
Well, believe it or not, in recent years, about 1 out of 5 legal immigrants to this country have gotten here as clients of the Office of Refugee Resettlement. So it's a massive number. In 2016, the total was 212,000, plus 50,000 unaccompanied children. All of them basically clients of Office of Refugee Resettlement. and all of them immediately eligible for all forms of welfare as soon as they hit shore, at least in the case of refugees and legal asylees. The refugee program is one slice of that vast program of humanitarian immigration. And refugee program itself started at the current version that we have. We've always been a welcoming country. We've always accepted refugees. Typically, it was the work of sacrificial charity. In 1980, it became the work of paid federal contractors. That was the year of the 1980 Refugee Act, which basically set up two streams of refugee flows, one an official transfer of refugees from around the world, and the other individuals who happen to get here on their own and declare themselves to be persecuted, and they're considered asylees. Very significant programs, very large. Like I said, 1 out of 5 legal immigrants is now getting here because they can convince the bureaucrat that they were a victim of some sort or another.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it is because of this program that we today have Congresswoman Alihan Omar.
Yes, she came in on the refugee program. As a matter of fact, she came in the years when there was quite a bit of fraud. Basically, she claimed some family relationship, which may or may not have been valid. The fraud was so widespread, that, particularly among Somalis, that the State Department started insisting on DNA samples because they would claim that they were a relative of a refugee that was already admitted. And she came in as on this family basis. They never went back when they realized they said something like 95% of Somali refugees during those years that claimed a relationship to a refugee already admitted, 90 or so percent were fraudulent. They never went back and said, well, let's look at the records. Let's look at who's already here and see if they are fraudulent. So we don't know in her case. Of course, there's a lot of other issues around her case as well, but.
Gotcha. What is it costing the taxpayer for this program?
Well, you'll never get the true cost of this program because they don't include the cost of welfare. When the official cost is going to run somewhere about $1.5 to $2 billion a year. The actual cost is more like 15 to 20 billion a year. And that's because I feel you should include welfare if it's used significantly, meaning that if a refugee arrives and is on food stamps for a few months, that's probably okay. But if they go into 5 years later, they're still on Medicaid, they're still getting cash assistance, that's a cost that I think should be attributed to the refugee program, and it goes easily up to 20 billion a year.
Wow, that is just.
And that's
again
that's just refugees and asylum seekers. The people pouring across the border, a southwest border, claiming asylum, most of them will never even make that category, but they're here because of the lure of getting in on that basis.
Yeah, one of the things that we've been noticing on the border is that most of them are not legitimate family members that want asylum. They're drug runners and sex trafficking and so forth.
Correct. And most of them, nearly the exact number is 977,500 people were apprehended by Border Patrol attempting to cross the border in the most recent fiscal year across the southern border. Now, bear in mind, that's just who they apprehended. There's some significant portion that they did not apprehend. Of the nearly million that they apprehended, in some months that I studied, 80% merely gave themselves up to Border Patrol and said, we're here, we're a family, and we're seeking asylum. And Border Patrol's hands were tied because there was a child. Quite often the child was rented. You probably heard of the instances of the same child showing up time after time after time in a family. And that's because they're getting a better break and then not detained as long. 20 days max if you can claim to have a child. So again, this is a gross abuse of our humanitarian program that was set up to help people that were genuinely fleeing persecution.
Gotcha. Now, under the current administration, has President Trump made any changes? His administration made any changes to the program to get it back on track and get it to what it should be?
He's made a number of changes that are very positive, I think. I'll just go through a few of them. Number one, prior to Jeff Sessions did this one, they were basically allowing people to claim domestic abuse as a reason for persecution or gang violence. Well, if you include domestic abuse or gang violence, first of all, it cannot be proven. It's easy to make up, and it affects probably billions of people, quite frankly. So he eliminated that as an automatic reason to be granted asylum. So that was pretty important. As well, President Trump has recently set in motion the Remain in Mexico policy, because in fact, if you're fleeing for your life, shouldn't you be applying for asylum in the first country that you land? So we have Cubans landing in Mexico. We have Russians and Ukrainians and Tajiks and Kazakhs landing in Mexico. They get on a bus. They don't ride the beast train or trudge up. They get on a bus and they ride to the border. They should be, by law, by all international law, they should be seeking asylum in the first country that they land. So basically, Trump has first of all said, you must seek asylum in the first country in which you land. This has just most recently been implemented, and it's not, I don't think it's been fully worked out yet. Furthermore, he said, if you do manage to get to the country and into U.S. borders and make an asylum claim, we're going to send you back to Mexico, where you will wait for your court date. That's been quite effective, and Mexico has more or less agreed to it. And having such a stake in the game now, because they're getting these refugees piling up in their country, they're suddenly starting to take care of their own borders. They're suddenly saying, wait a minute, we don't want them coming through. So as somebody has pointed out, Mexico has done more to reduce the number of illegals coming into this country than Congress has. So there's those three things. And as well, very important, the inability to detain individuals with children for longer than 20 days. That was a huge come on for asylum seekers trying to get in. As I said, they would rent a child, get over the border, get released into the country with the promise to appear maybe a year down the road. And the child would go back across Mexico and be used again for this purpose, because they could not be detained for more than 20 days. Trump has sought to have indefinite detention, or detention as much as is needed. So far, that's been blocked by the court system, but we'll see where that goes. That would be very effective too.
Now we have. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was going to say, you realize that people, if they get across the border, make a phony claim for asylum, and or get enough of a claim that they're let into the system, into the country, and given a court date, they can get a Social Security within 6 months. Within waiting 6 months, they can get a Social Security, and they can work. So that's also a huge come on, a huge.
Now we're talking two different under the same program. We have, on one hand, those that are coming across our southern border, for instance, trying to come into America. But then we also have the part of the program where we actually go and bring people from other countries on purpose over here. Is that number greater than what's coming across the border?
That number is significantly smaller. But it's been larger in the past. One major difference that Trump has made is to slash the quota. There have been some years when we've brought in 150,000 some years, 200,000 a year is exactly as you said, and that's basically a UN program. That's a program that's basically run by the UN. People don't realize that. The UN is having a big impact on our future immigration flow because any refugee will eventually affect normal immigration flows by bringing in family members and things like that. So that's a program that's pretty 90% brought in by the United Nations, and that's also very questionable. However, Trump has made some changes there, very significant changes, and the quota the last year for the Obama administration was 110,000. Trump's got his quota down this year to 18,000. So that's significant. Plus, he's issued this executive order, which is giving states and localities the right to say no to the placement of refugees. That has quite a few issues with it. It's not perfect, but it's showing that he is giving a lot of attention to that program as well. But you're right, it's kind of two different programs.
What I was going to ask you next was how the states play a role in this.
Right. Well,
who makes that choice where they go, and then the state has the opportunity to say, "We're not doing it." I mean, where does that?
Right.
Where in the program does somebody say Minnesota is going to get X amount, and Detroit or Illinois is going to get X amount? Where does that come into play?
That comes into play with the contractors that are involved. There's 9 main federal contractors that are involved. Most of them many of them have some religious association, although they're no longer at all really religious. Like there's Lutherans, there's Catholics, there's Hebrew Jewish groups, there's even an evangelical group that's involved in this. They are private federal contractors. They are not charities. They, in Washington, D.C., they all have headquarters in D.C. with the State Department. They plan the disbursement of refugees as they hit the shores. Typically, states have had a theoretical right to say no, but if they ever said no, they were never really listened to. For instance, when Obama raised the quota to 110,000, about 4 states decided to get out. Maine, New Jersey, Tennessee had been out for a while, and I think Texas got out. About 4 or 5 states got out. As it's working, though, the contractors were still able to run the program on their own without any federal oversight. So this executive order has supposedly given a state a ironclad means to say no. And if a state says yes and a city says no, then that city would not get refugees as the executive order is worded today. But we'll see how it really works out.
Is there any particular location on the web that people can go to follow these numbers and where they're actually going and what states?
Yes, the best website is Refugee Resettlement Watch. And somebody else you should consider having on your show, Ann Corcoran. Maybe you've heard of her. But yes, Refugee Resettlement Watch. And she links back to State Department sites with official statistics and covers it very thoroughly. I highly recommend that site.
Okay.
And of course, thank you. We're going CIS.org as well, of course.
Great. Thank you so much. Don, we sure do appreciate it. Thank you for all the work you're doing. All of those over at the Center for Immigration Studies, Great American Patriots, and we sure do appreciate it. Hope you'll come back in a later date and we'll talk more.
Great.
All right, folks. So there it is. You got the websites. We'll put it up also on our website and over at YouTube as well. So you can actually go look at those numbers. And I assure you, it's going to be a little shocking. So we're going to be right back after this break with Tim Foley of Arizona Border Recon. So stay tuned. I'll see you shortly.
It's becoming more violent down here.
60% of all narcotics come to the country through this sector right here.
Weed, meth, heroin. all kinds of stuff.
Human trafficking,
child trafficking.
There is a part of it that not a lot of people hear about.
We're losing, 44 people a day from fentanyl overdoses? If it gets through here, it's going to every city USA. The guys that are running the show over there have no regard for human life.
They control everything. It's all money to them.
If we stop the flow, then we've made an impact.
Go ahead, pull Romeo 1. They're about 3 miles out. They're sitting at a crossroads trying to make this corner with this big old truck.
Are they still moving in that direction towards Baby's Head, over?
Negative. They're posted up and they're pointing in that direction. They're all just kind of staged right now.
What we're playing is 3 games all rolled into one. The first game is hide and seek, because if we go into an area like this, they'll start moving. And then it turns into a chess match. Me putting my pieces in front of their pieces to block their movements. Then it turns into a game of whack-a-mole. You hit them here and they pop up here. You hit them there and they pop up here. And so we repeat the process all over again.
They got fresh tracks over the top of ours. Going that way back there. My thought was he may be the lookout for someone setting up on the vehicles.
What's done here is to protect America. It's not because we don't like our neighbors to the south. We don't know who's coming in with what.
These operations are clean and professional and we're not a bunch of cowboys.
We have to operate within the Arizona statutes of self-defense. We can't run around pointing guns at people and handcuff folks. It's not what we're about.
We don't mistreat people. We give them food, water, medical aid till Border Patrol gets here, but then we turn them over to them.
The trees, I've heard about them. I've finally seen one. Wow. What happened right here?
Terrible crimes against humanity, crimes against women, and yeah, it doesn't set well.
This is just part of life out here. It's violent, it's brutal.
You're a target.
The news, I think, a lot of times fails to portray what's actually happening here.
I think the media is full of shit, and they promote false news all the time.
This is a full-time job. You got to show consistency, dedication. You have to earn to patch.
What the group stands for is I believe in with all my heart.
Say our border's secure, but it's not.
There's no wall, there's no barrier. The barrier is these mountains.
Obviously, this is just a small part of it, but you got to start somewhere.
We'll still be out here, disrupt, to block, until we don't need to be anymore.
There is no easy fix. Regardless of how you do it, you're gonna piss somebody off.
And we are back with my friend Tim Foley of Arizona Border Recon. Tim, how are you, brother?
Good. How are you doing, Doug?
I'm doing good. It's a pleasure to see you again.
Nice
look, I look at what you guys are doing as just it's amazing. It's wonderful. You guys have something organized that hopefully after tonight, we're going to be able to get you guys a lot more help because we need more people like you and your group doing what you're doing. Great promo. I love that. Tell our audience how long you've been doing this and what inspired you, Tim, to get involved with this.
Basically is making another either docu-series, documentary, or a week. All depends on what the producer wants to do with it. But and It's, like I said, it is brutal. It's hard. We guys, and they're gone within. This is crazy. The terrain we're in is just brutal. So, what got me into it was I was looking at 100.
Hey Tim, this is Dustin, the producer. I think you're having some internet connectivity issues over there. I'm going to just switch over to Doug, and then I'm going to call you and patch you in on audio.
Okay.
Yeah, so I was hearing that too, and I wasn't sure if the audience was hearing what I was hearing. So we're going to get him on the phone here shortly, so you can hear what's happening on the Arizona border, which is also happening on the entire border from Texas all the way out to California. I want you all to go, when you have the opportunity, to Arizona Border Recon, to the website and to their Facebook page. And I want you to look at what this group is encountering. It is absolutely stunning. And this is just one small section of this huge, gigantic border that we have. And most of it being unsecured, and no one there like Tim and his group, or, for instance, any type of a barrier. Some of it we've seen is just basically like little small fencing that you can just step over, or something to keep cattle in, for instance. So how are we doing? Do we have Tim back? Do we have Tim back? Tim, can you hear us? Well, I will continue to talk about some of the things that their organization is doing down there. One of the things that I first learned about when I was up in Washington, D.C., the last time where I was able to meet with Tim, we were sitting in the hotel lounge area, having a light dinner, having a few cocktails, and talking about what they're witnessing and what they're seeing down on the border. And one of the things that they brought to my attention was what's called rape trees. And you may have seen in the promo where they talked about the trees. And of course, in the promo, they didn't go into great detail about it. But basically, they take the weakest link, the cartel does, out of the refugees or the people that are trying to come across, be it part of drug running operations or in the sex trade business where they're bringing women and girls against their will. And they will basically put a dog collar on them and tie them to a tree and have their way with them, 50, 60, 100 people, and then just leave them there to die. And they find what's left of the body. And most of the time it's after they have been, animals have come along, besides the animals that hurt them, animals as in four-legged type, and finishing off what's left of it. Absolutely brutal, horrible, and disgusting what the cartel does. And, we've talked to, and if you've seen part 1, 2, and 3 of our documentary, it's out right now. We've talked to the border agents. We've talked to local law enforcement down there and other groups that are down on the border helping, and heard what they're encountering, same type situation where those that are in the sex trafficking business are bringing these young girls and women across. Just, they're treated like I wouldn't even say property because property is treated better than this. They're sure not treated like humans. All right. And they're sure not even treated like pets or animals. I mean, they're treated like dirt. All right. And, it seems like from everything I've been able to put together about the cartel is they make ISIS terrorists in the Middle East look like choir boys. Okay. They're just brutal, horrible people. And MS-13 gang members are part of that. And right now, all over America, especially in California, as well as up in New Jersey area, up in the northeast part of America, we have a big problem with these MS-13 gang members that are doing horrible things to people. So where are we at, brother? Do we have Tim back?
Yeah, I got Tim on the phone. So as you ask a question, I'll relay it over to him because we don't have an actual patch-through system yet. That's probably the next thing on our list. So what question do you have for Tim?
Okay, first off, folks, we're sorry that that's just how live works. Sometimes you don't have the connection.
Yeah, just to let the audience know quick, Tim is on the road right now. He's not in Arizona. He's out on the West Coast right now, actually raising some funds for their nonprofit, which is what actually funds these missions. As you can see, obviously, in that video with Tim and his crew, there's a lot of volunteers that come down there, but they have a lot of equipment, a lot of logistics. Same thing when Doug and I went to the border, and when other people that are doing similar things to what we're doing go, you have to remember there's flight costs, hotel costs, car rental costs, security costs, equipment costs. I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. It's basically, imagine the cost of taking your family on a 5-day vacation. It adds up quickly. And with Tim and these guys that are out there working these missions, it costs a lot of money. So he's on the road meeting with some Patriots he's met over the years. He's been doing this 10 years, raising funds. So at the end, we'll have him give out information on where you guys, if you want to donate to him, where you guys can help with these missions. Because what Tim is doing is very similar to Doc Vickers that you saw in, I believe, in part 2 of our Border War series, the Texas Border Volunteers. Those guys, too, they do that on their own dime with small donations, just like what we're doing here.
One of the first questions I was going to ask Tim, if you'll relay this to him, he can answer real quick. Is it like just a 30-mile stretch of area that they're actually patrolling?
Hey, Tim, Doug was asking, the area in Arizona that you're patrolling, is that roughly a 30-mile stretch?
Yeah, 30 to 40 miles is what we're doing. That's about all we can handle with our logistics and the amount of people we have. And it's busier than hell there anyway. I mean, I get asked to go other places, and it's like, why do I need to go anywhere else when it's so busy right here? I mean, last week, in 2 days just west of us, in 2 days, 400 came across and turned themselves over to Border Patrol.
Wow. Tim, is that land that you guys are using, is that owned by one person, or is it several people that own that land, or is it state-owned land or federal land?
Tim, is that land that you're on, is that federal land, state land, is that privately owned land? And if it's privately owned land, is that one owner, multiple owners? How does your territory work?
90% or 95% of what we're on is national forest, so it's public lands. So we have a right to be there, and there's about 5% is private land. It's cattle ranchers, and they love us, so we're good with both private and government lands.
And how is the Border Patrol relationship? Is it very cooperative with them?
How is your relationship with the Border Patrol? Are you guys cooperating well together?
Yeah, with the line agents, they appreciate us, and because, I mean, hopefully you'll be out here in January and we can show you what it's like, and you'll understand why they like us. But when we're out in the mountains, where's your best intel going to come from? Not from a group of guys that call themselves intel sitting in an office 100 plus miles away from the border, or from your best intel is going to come from somebody who lives there 24/7 and is out in the mountains all the time.
Exactly. Tell him we had the pleasure of meeting with Dr. Vickers of Texas Border Volunteers, which is kind of similar to what Arizona Border Recon's doing. They were in Brooks County, Texas last week, or we were up there when we interviewed him. He's got a 1,000-acre ranch about 75 miles from the border, and he is finding half-eaten migrant bodies on his property almost every other week. Are you finding anything like that in your area where the people are already dead?
When we went out to Texas last week to film, we went between Boca Chica, where the Rio Grande dumps into the Gulf, all the way to McAllen, and then 75 miles north to Brooks County. In Brooks County, we met a rancher and the head of the Texas Border Volunteers, similar to your organization. And this guy, on his ranch, which is about 1,000 acres, he's finding, I mean, literally every other week, they're guessing they're finding 50 bodies a year dead in this county, and they're guessing there's upwards of 250 to 300 dead. Half-eaten bodies, eaten by mountain lions on the guy's ranch. Are you seeing anything similar to that in the work that you're doing? Are you finding dead bodies scattered all over the place?
Well, we're finding them every once in a while. We came across one last summer, but there's so many predators out there that there's got to be hundreds of people out there, but the terrain is so vast and so steep and rugged, and nobody's even been in some of the areas, to comb that whole area. It's not like Texas where Vickers is, and it's flat, so it's hard to try to figure out each and every route that they come through in our area. I mean, it's incredible the amount of ways you can get through the mountains, and we've got bobcats, coyotes, mountain lions. A little further to the east of us, we got black bear. Last summer there was one over where the bears are. They found him, but his foot was eaten off. So it happens all the time. I mean, but there's no telling how many bodies are out there.
What is his number of people that they're actually apprehending and turning over to the Border Patrol? What's it averaging, let's say, a year?
Yeah, Doug had a question, and I'll tie this in with the audience because I'm watching them as well. Some people, I know a lot of people say, good, let all the migrants get eaten and die out there, but I just want to address a point that's important. Doc Vickers is on private land, and I brought this up before. Imagine, whether you care about migrants or not, imagine walking out your front door of your apartment, your condo, your house, your farm, whatever it may be, every single day with your kids or grandkids, and finding a half-eaten dead body on your front lawn. Okay, that is in America. That's an American who owns a piece of land, and that's despicable, and it's disgusting, and our government should be ashamed of itself for allowing this to happen. So it's not about the migrants. Leave that out of the equation. Number two, somebody asked on the chat, Tim, if you guys are running ops or just out there playing Army, and then that ties into Doug's question, which was, how many people are you apprehending or helping to apprehend? I apologize. The Border Patrol does the apprehensions every week, every month, every year. How many are you apprehending and turning over to Border Patrol? How many arrests are being made?
That's an interesting one, and that's just started coming up in the past year or so with all media. I mean, it was never a game of tallying numbers, but I mean, we're in the thousands. A lot of times when we come across them, if they see us, they'll bail, and when they start running, it's like, all right, well, I'm not going to run and chase your ass. So, but myself and my dog, we actually get a lot just driving the dirt roads out in the mountains by people who are abandoned by their coyotes. When Border Patrol swoops in on them at night and they break the group up, my dog and I will pick up easy, 6 to 10 a month easy. And that's not when we're doing ops. And as far as I've heard it many a time before, but playing Army, I mean, obviously that's somebody who's never been in the military, but 95 to 98% of our volunteers are former military and law enforcement officers, and out of that, half of them at least have combat experience. So I get so sick and tired of hearing that, oh, what are you doing playing Army?
That's why I brought it up. That's why I brought it up and was hoping for you to answer that the way you did.
Yeah, that sounds like a troll.
Yeah. Tell Tim, I had the, when he shared with me the rape tree story, I've shared that with the audience, but can he put it in his own perspective?
Doug brought up, and there was mention of it in your trailer that you put together as well, and you had talked to Doug about it and explained to him the rape tree. He would like you to explain to the audience in your own words what it's like and what it's like coming across something like that in the line of work that you're in.
It's disgusting. It's heartbreaking. You go down trails and you'll round a bend, and basically there's a mesquite tree, and hanging in the mesquite tree is bras and panties and things like that. And so they're called rape trees. And basically what happens is if they're bringing women through, they'll reach a certain point where it's either you give it up or we just leave your ass here out in the middle of nowhere and you're going to die. And so they get raped, and I mean, the bra sizes and panty sizes we see, it's like they're anyone and everyone. I mean, teenagers through 30-year-olds, because it's sad. It makes you wish, at least me, it makes me wish that I could walk up on that as it's happening and then give out a dose of desert justice, because I don't care if you're illegal or what, but doing that to a woman is just straight up wrong, and I don't care where you're from or anything else. I will defend women.
Amen. Also, I want to mention real quick to the audience that the people that are being found, for instance, that they're finding there in Arizona, as well as Dr. Vickers' land and elsewhere, that didn't make it and died, and they're eaten up by animals. Most of those people in that situation are not the ones that you don't want to come here and seek asylum. All right. The people that the cartel is sending over here, the gang members, the sex trafficking, the drug trafficking, look, they're not dying out there. Okay. These are people that are actually trying to, get from Central or South America and start a better life. And they have no idea how to navigate this land. And then when the cartel decides to let them go through and do so, they're on their own. All right. They get lost, they run out of water, and that's it. Okay. So there's two different kind of people we're talking about here. And, one is a horrible element, and the other one is people that don't deserve this to happen to them.
Yeah, Doug, and I just want to add to that quick to remind the audience, and this is in probably all three of our pieces of the border war already, is that as Sheriff Martinez in Brooks County told us, and I've talked to other people now that we know, everyone who's coming up crossing has to cut a deal with the cartel. So whether you're going to end up in a job and have to make a kickback, a commission almost to pay off your debt to them for allowing you to cross, helping you to cross, or you're going to have to actually work for the cartel when you get to a city here, whether that be, pimping people or being a prostitute or running drugs or guns or whatever it is, so when these people are crossing up through these fields, the cartel, the coyotes will gladly leave them behind. They're just people that they didn't get cash out of them. They don't owe them anything, and there's no Yelp or Google ratings for the success of the cartel coyotes, whether or not they got you from point A to point B. So as far as they're concerned, you're just a mule, and if you're going to fall behind in that pack, they leave you there to die. And again, if you don't want to look at it from that perspective, look at it from the perspective of the landowners, the Americans that have to find this stuff on their land. And it's happening because our federal government, the swamp, Washington, the bureaucrats refuse to secure the border. And everyone we talked to in Texas was very open and honest. Secure the border, at the border, and all of this nonsense will stop. Yes, we have to clean up the mess that's already here, but as far as more flow, it will end if we actually secure our border.
Exactly. We're about out of time, so real quick, ask Tim, how can our audience help them? Any particular websites besides Arizona Border Recon?
Hey, Tim, as I mentioned to the audience in the beginning that you're on the road raising some money for, your nonprofit, which is actually the group that does the ops. At the same time, we know that you're putting together, we saw that clip that we played in the beginning. It's beautiful, by the way. It really, it's powerful. That you're trying to get a documentary put together and or a series so you can continue to shed light on the problem as the same thing that we're doing here from a different angle. Is there anywhere people can go besides ArizonaBorderRecon.org, which we have up on the screen? How can people find you? How can they contribute? If somebody's got a wealthy uncle that wants to chip in, what can we do to help get you the equipment and the support and the ongoing income you need to keep this operation going?
Well, the website, as you mentioned, is one place. We have a donation page there. We're also on Facebook. We're on YouTube. You can see what we see when we're out in the mountains. We're on Twitter. We're pretty much everywhere. But it's, like I say, it's self-funded. I've been doing it for 10 years. I have over $200,000 of my own money into it. I retired early and cashed out my pensions, and the government was nice enough to hit me with a 25% penalty for doing that on money. Yeah, on my money that I already paid taxes on in the first place, but I got taxed again 25%. And so basically, all the money went into our comms, laptops, communications, and a lot of the medical supplies. We have medics that go out with us. So also when we run into hurt illegals or dope mules or whoever we run into, we can provide them with medical aid. Regardless if you're coming in the country the wrong way. Don't want to see you die out there. I mean, I sure in the hell wouldn't want to die out there, and I live out there, and it is brutal. I mean, but yeah, any one of those social media platforms, you can find us and donate there.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Tim, because, at the end of the day, it's a love of humanity. When I was in my 20s doing this a little bit different, but I funded everything with my own money. I had turned my marketing office into a headquarters and ran around, put in my own money, and our founders were putting in their own money. People would throw in a little bit here and there, but people would ask me why I was sacrificing the height of my career to do this, and I said I love my country. I want to save my republic, and I believe the border and immigration is the number one issue that touches every other issue in the United States. And sometimes people won't understand it, but Doug and myself and Chrissy, who works with us, and Maria and Maryland and American Joe and Dan Golvach. I mean, we've all had a calling, man, and we're patriots, and we love our country. And if our government, they always say the illegals are doing the jobs Americans aren't going to do. Well, it's people like Tim Foley that are doing the jobs the government refuses to do. And that's the truth of the matter. These people are doing it out of the goodness of their hearts because we still believe in this idea of a constitutional republic and a sovereign nation.
Well, I think Kennedy said it best when he said, ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. And people ask me all the time, why do I do it? And I said, I could still be working and making a damn good living in the construction industry. But when I'm lying on my deathbed, what do I want to be able to look back on? That I worked my ass off 9 to 5 and I did the American dream with a 2-bedroom, 2-bath and a white picket fence and paid my taxes and was a good, obedient little tax feeder. But, or do I lay there on my deathbed and go, you know what? I tried to make this a better place. I tried to do the right thing, and what's more important? And, life is not all about money, but we've been brainwashed to believe that you're nothing at the end if you don't have a boatload of material possessions and money.
100% agree.
Very true. Very true.
So,
tell them thank you very much.
All the time, why do you do it? And I ask them, why don't you?
Yes. All right. Well, Doug said thank you very much, Tim. As soon as you get in a situation where you've got a great internet connection, let's get you back on because the audience appreciates what you do. They were really blown away by that trailer you put together and the work that you do. It's fantastic. We're praying for you.
You can see our fence there. I mean, with the drone shots, that's our border.
Oh, I've told people all the time. First time I talked to you and told you what we were working on for January, and you said, are Doug and Joe ready to hike up 7 miles into the mountains with us? So.
Hell, last time I was out there, I did, me and my number 2 did about 20 miles a day.
Yeah.
I'm bringing an oxygen tank.
Be prepared there, Doug.
Doug wanted to know if you could haul his oxygen tank up the side of the mountain for him.
We have medics around and radios.
Oh, good.
All right, thank you so much, Tim.
Hey, Tim, thank you. God bless you. Stay safe. We'll get these links out for you in our next e-blast. We'll send out information to everyone as well. Guys, it's all about people like this. We ask you to support us. This is how we stay independent. You can support people like Tim. I mean, these are the guys that you ask, where is everybody at the border? Where are they? Why aren't they doing stuff? It's groups like Center for Immigration Studies that get us the statistics and the information about border crossings and crime and the refugee programs. It's people like Tim and Doc Vickers that are on the ground running operations, supporting the Border Patrol. It's people like us that are trying to get this intel out to everybody going down to the border to see it firsthand. So support all these groups. I mean, every piece of this is just as important as the other pieces.
Exactly. All right, folks. So we ran a little over our time, but if you'll bear with me for a second, we're going to take a short little break, and I'll come back with our closing statements that I think you want to hear, because I've got something very, very important that I want to get out there to address not just what we're doing, but what other people are doing to try and sabotage it. So we'll be right back after this quick break. Hello, American Patriots. Douglas Ducote here. The Second Amendment, it's not for hunting. It's for protecting ourselves against our government. Well, the last thing you need to worry about is your weapon being rusted and not working. Folks, here's your product. FirearmGuard.com. Use promo code DOUG for free shipping. This will protect your weapon from any rust and mildew issues. And we are back. I want to say a special thank you to our guest tonight, Don Barnett with Center of Immigration Studies, and Tim Foley of Arizona Border Recon. We appreciate so much you guys taking the time to share with our audience the same thing that we're trying to bring out there, which is the truth about what we're up against with this border. I want you to please go check out the part 1, 2, and 3 right now of the documentary that we started on the border. I will, we're going to have, there's some other parts of that will be up as well. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, I need you to know that we have the DouglasDucote.com, which is the website where there's other information that you're not going to get on YouTube because we can't put it on YouTube. YouTube will shut us down in a heartbeat if some of the things that we've experienced were shown. So if you haven't had the opportunity, please go over to DouglasDucote.com and sign up, put in your email address. It's totally free. And the only time we send out any kind of messages basically is just to let you know when the show is going to be on and who the guests are. And then when I do put out a video, separate from that, you'll get a notification that it's up. Other than that, you know, we're not out there trying to sell you anything like a lot of people are. So what I want to say is that we are doing the best we can to bring you facts and the news as it actually exists in relations to not only just breaking news stories, which is a lot of my videos that I do separate from the Douglas Ducote Show, but share with you the things that the typical media doesn't. All right. For instance, what we've been exposing on this border. In doing so, it has got more media to jump on the bandwagon because we're reaching a larger audience now. And when I put out information and within 24 hours, Fox News or CNN is basically repeating what I just did the day before, then that shows you we're making an impact as far as the media is concerned to get them to shine a little light on this problem. Okay. Now, that being said, there are those popping up all over YouTube, Facebook, Twitter. Most of them are Democrats and liberals that are slandering what we're doing. All right. They're making up lies. They're saying it isn't the problem that we're telling you it is. Everything from donation money and what we're bringing in, or, you know, I heard yesterday, you know, that we're bringing in $300,000, for instance, with the stuff we're doing to help veterans, and that we're charging vets to get our services at Veterans United for Justice. All right, which is outright slander. You know, not only do we not charge, but money goes out of my own pocket to help these vets. And anyone can go to our Facebook page, Veterans United for Justice, and see the things that we've done and where our monies went. And whatever we have left over, which, you know, is very little because we don't take much in to start with. Number one, I don't get a single penny as the CEO of the organization. It all goes back out to the vets. But anything left over, we do go and donate to another veterans organization. The Louisiana VA, Department of VA up in Baton Rouge, for instance. You could see where I, you know, go and present them a check of whatever money is left over in donations. So that is being discussed in a slanderous way. And then we got people saying that we are trying to get money to become rich, and it's all about getting you to donate to this project that we're doing so that we can live in have luxury cars and live in nice homes and pay our bills. And I'm here to tell you, the people that are doing that, for instance, like, let me just throw one name out there real quick, Trumpster Bob, he and the rest of them are full of shit. All right, there, I said it. They are absolutely disgusting, horrible human beings that have nothing better to do but sit for 3-4 hours in front of a camera on YouTube and drink alcohol. And the more they drink, the stupider they get, and the more outrageous things they say, and the personal attacks that they do, and I could care less what somebody says about me. Okay, I'm a big boy. I know what I did for my country in the military. I know what I did for my country in law enforcement. I know what I'm doing for my country to help vets. And I know what I'm doing for my country with this show to expose what's happening on that border, and also to expose what's happening with Democrats and Republicans up in Washington, D.C. So, but where it becomes personal is when they start attacking our family members, our spouses, our children. Okay. What type of human being does that? Well, liberals and Democrats and people that are not Christians. And when every other word out of their mouth is foul and they're spewing hate, yet they claim to be a Christian, well, obviously they've never cracked the Bible and read the first page, much less all the rest of them through the end. Probably never even been in a church. Not that you need to go to a church to be a Christian, but I'm telling you, those that are doing that, you will answer to God, not me or not anyone else. It's just absolutely wrong. It never fails. I've heard this for a long time from other people when I got in this and started doing these videos and doing this show, that you're gonna be attacked and you just have to roll with it. And we do, okay? But I just want the audience to realize that what we're doing with this border is from our heart. It is 100% factual. We're showing you, we're going down there ourselves, and I'm interviewing the Border Patrol. All right. I'm interviewing the landowners. All right. I'm not just sitting behind my desk in front of a camera talking BS like these that are trying to say we aren't doing any good to help America. So, look, take it for what it's worth, but I will continue to do my best to serve this country until the day I die. And whether or not you support what we're doing or you don't support what we're doing, that's completely up to you. It's the American way. So that being said, I want to bring on our producer real quick, Mr. Dustin Gold, and then I will close out the show. Dustin.
Oh, wow, that was a great show. Listen, I just want to add a couple of quick things on top of what Doug just talked about, and not about Trumpster Bob, but one of the things that we're working on, I mean, the reason why we're doing this, and I've been working on this and putting notes together and really solidifying the whole purpose of why we're doing this. The first thing is, as you've noticed over the last month or so, Doug has been bringing on more guests like Don, who we had in the first segment, Jessica Vaughn from Center for Immigration Studies, Dan Golvach, the Angel Dad, who's very educated on these topics. The purpose of that is to bring you information from experts and people that have been following border and immigration issues for a number of years. Then we've been going down to the border, not to just do the same thing that everyone else is doing, or not to present to you the whitewashed version of the border in which you get from the Republicans and the Democrats and the media. It's to show you the real stories from the landowners, from Border Patrol, from law enforcement, like Sheriff Benny Martinez, who told us a lot that we didn't know. And then we find out this guy has to patrol 1,000 square miles with only 7,200 residents, so his tax base is very small. He's got 10 deputies. He's got one deputy patrolling his entire town on any given night. And then they have to use over 50% of their time to deal with federal immigration issues because the federal government is failing. We brought you information on Border Patrol. They don't even have night vision. They don't have bulletproof vests. They're borrowing them from Doc Vickers with the Texas Border Volunteers. So we're bringing you those stories, and our goal is to go across the entire border. That's what it's been. And we're going to pull 6, 7 stories out of each place like we just did. And by the way, on DouglasDucote.com over the next starts tomorrow. We're going to be putting the full interviews with the sheriff, with Chris Cabrera, the head of the vice president of Border Patrol Union, with Rusty, that you guys, you know him, he's the guy with his dogs killed. And those guys, they're going to be the full interviews. You could watch them there. They're just too long to put on YouTube, but we want to give you access to everything because you guys help fund everything. So you should have access to everything that we got. There's only a few pieces that won't go up, and that's kind of stuff that was off the record that got caught on camera. And we're not looking to get anybody fired or killed right now. So that's not our mission. We're trying to protect and help the people that are actually defending this country. And so once we have that, we're going to boil that down into a documentary with the real problems. At the same time, what we're really focused on is the solution. As I said, we're patriots first, we're activists first, and then the media part of this is to present you this information. And I've been working on the solution. As we told you, we're looking at, one, we have to plug the hole and then build the wall. So right now, there's 1,350 miles that are not sealed. About 1,264 miles of that is on the Texas border. The Texas border is owned 97%. It's private land, a lot of ranchers. And what we've heard, and I'm talking to more people over the last couple of days, is that a lot of these people are under threat and or have been bribed and on the take. So if somebody comes to you and says, take $1 million from the cartel a year to leave this open or we'll kill you and your family, and then they skin your dog alive and burn down a couple of your warehouses, you're probably going to take the $1 million. Then once you take the $1 million, they've got you blackmailed because now you took money from the cartel. It's not blackmail about you versus the cartel in the court of public opinion. As we know, there's a lot of corruption. The cartel controls prosecutors over here, some law enforcement over here. So now the threat is you'll be prosecuted for that bribe. And that's how they've got you blackmailed. So that's what we're up against. Now, what we're working on this solution for Trump is we need to plug the hole before the election with something like the terror block system that we showed the video of. If there's other companies out there, send them to us. We're not getting paid by terror block. We don't own stock in terror block. It happens to be a solution someone presented to us. One of the guys from the company came on. It seems to work. People in military are telling us it does work, and that's why we're promoting it, because it's something that looks like it'll work. So we plug the hole. We have the PID, the perimeter intrusion detection technology, which is a vibration technology. People try to tunnel under or go over. It sets off an alert. Border Patrol, National Guard, whatever, could have a phone in their pocket. It shows them what's going on. They can dispatch a rapid response team to that area. And then the third part is the National Guard. There's multiple ways, and I'm going back through old laws, that President Trump could do this. It's all going to be in our solution before we put the printed version together to give to you. We want our I's dotted and our T's crossed before we go put our foot on our mouth. But there's multiple ways to do it. Doug's been talking about Title 31. National Guard could come in under President command armed without arrest powers, but they could be a backup force to the Border Patrol. They can man cameras. They can do what Tim Foley's group is doing, basically. But the president has floated some things over the last few months that he hasn't actually done that would help him greatly if he did. One of those, it came out a couple of days ago, right when we got back from the border and Doug did his first video, what makes you a member of the cartel? If Donald Trump labeled the cartels as terrorist organizations, that sets off a number of things he could do. And I'm not even talking about invading Mexico. He can then make the case that we're being invaded by a terrorist force, which allows him to use the Insurrection Act, which was signed in 1807 by Thomas Jefferson. And with the Insurrection Act, which will actually overstep posse comitatus, which stops in certain cases military or National Guard from being able to have arrest powers, under the Insurrection Act, they would have arrest powers. So he could literally deploy National Guard, Marines, Army down there along the border with full-blown arrest powers. He's floated it as a deportation force, but he hasn't done it. Now, on the interior, Chris Kobach, who's been talking about immigration issues for years, wrote a lot of policy for the conservative states when he worked for FAIR, was on Donald Trump's voter fraud committee. He ran that. And Chris Kobach, who we're going to be talking to soon once we have this in place to look it over because he's an immigration legal expert, he's had an idea for years. There's a 1994 bill that Bill Clinton signed. There's a loophole. The president, through the DHS, can actually deputize local and state police with immigration arrest power. So in conservative areas now where the sheriffs and the police chiefs want to get on board, that could become an interior force. So there's a lot of steps to this. That's the solution we're going to bring forward. Our goal, as we've said, package the problem into a small presentation for the president, along with the solution in a small presentation for the president, and then through the angel families, the veterans, the law enforcement, and American patriots like yourself, demand the meeting with the White House. I think we can get it. Look, Donald Trump brought a lot of these people up on stage with him during the election. I know he doesn't want to be shamed, and I know he doesn't want to be disliked. That's his personality. So with the same people that are a little upset right now that things haven't been done, we bring them back together, we get this meeting at the White House, we sit down, we do our presentation. If the president says yes, we won the short-term battle, and then we help him with whatever he needs to get this done, and then we continue to fight to start removing terror block off the Texas border and start putting up more of the wall, of which he's doing some of it. And he's using eminent domain powers under the national emergency he declared, which actually was a positive, but he's going the long route with the eminent domain. And there's actually an act called the National Grab Act where he can take the land first and then negotiate the price of the land later. That's going to have to be done in the case of terror block. Under Teddy Roosevelt and the other three border states, there was actually a 60-foot gap between the border, like an easement, and that's where we can put wall in now. But in Texas, that was not included when Teddy Roosevelt put the deal together. So all this is going to be laid out. It's so intricate, but we want to go there and go, boom, here's our policy solution, as if we were working in the White House and got assigned this responsibility. And then along with that, what we're going to do with you guys, I'm working on this too, it's a new Declaration of Independence. What was the Declaration of Independence that Thomas Jefferson drafted? It was a list of indictments against the King of England on behalf of the people. And we're going to put together a list of indictments against these politicians in Washington, Republican and Democrat, who've refused to secure our border, with a list of all the angel families that they're responsible for their children, their mothers, their husbands dying. And we're going to ask you guys to go old school with this. Don't email it. You're going to take it, print it, put your name on it, and we start sending them in the mail to all the politicians. You know, we've declared you a member of the cartel. You'll be called out in public meetings. Here is the solution we're presenting. If you're serious about this and you're not on the take, get behind this solution. This is going to be a team effort. It's a huge undertaking for an operation of 3 or 4 people that we have. We don't even have the ability to, I mean, literally, we went down to the border, we filmed, I flew out of Doug's, came back and was editing videos for 72 hours straight. We are a small operation. It's fine. But we're going to need your support. This is, you always ask, what can we do? This is what we need to do. I just did an interview with Mahgdalen Rose today on her show. Doug's been on there. She comes on here. And she asked me that as I was talking to young conservatives on her show. And I said, the thing that you need to do the most is if you have an issue in this country, if you have a problem and you think you have a solution, stand up and be the leader. Stop expecting other people to come around and be the leader. Stop hoping that someone in Washington is going to fix our problems. Stop hoping that if you just float it out there on Twitter, somebody's going to pick it up and run with it. If you believe in it, if you believe you can make this country a better place, if you believe you have a solution to saving our republic, then be the leader. And what we're doing here with this team is we're leading. We don't all agree on every single issue, and that's fine. And that's the problem conservatives have, because we're inherently individualists. As soon as we differ on one issue, we hate each other and call each other a commie, and then don't trust him, and he's an idiot. Well, here, we don't do that. We're focused on something we know can happen. We believe it can happen. President Trump has the power to make it happen, and he is the only president in modern history that even ran on the idea of doing it. So it's fine that we go after him on this and hold his feet to the fire. He's a big boy. He's a billionaire. He's a powerful businessman. He's built buildings all over the world. He's had to go face to face with world leaders to get zoning permits and contracts and everything else. We are there to help him, not to hurt him. We are there to remind him of the promise he made and to tell him, if you've run into any problems, here's a solution we think will work. We want you to look at it. Please, sir, these are the people that helped get you elected, and we're here to help you get this done. You won on Build the Wall. In this election, do not run from Build the Wall. It was a winning message when you ran in 2016. Getting it accomplished through force is going to be a winning strategy for 2016. Above Donald Trump's desk on the left-hand side, first interview he ever did in the Oval Office, it was Sean Hannity. He's got a big painting of Andrew Jackson there. Behind him, he has a statue of Andrew Jackson on a horse. And you ask yourself why Donald Trump would have a picture of technically the first Democrat president. You know why? Because Andrew Jackson did three things. One, he closed the Second Federal Reserve. Two, he actually paid off the debt, things that Donald Trump talked about. And third, he stood up to the courts when they tried to stop him. And Donald Trump is going to have to take a personal and political risk at this, but I know he wants to go down in history as the greatest president that ever lived. He wants a portrait on the wall that's bigger than George Washington's. He wants his head carved into Mount Rushmore. And if he does this, he can make it happen. I am telling you, this is the most important issue in this country since Thomas Jefferson drafted the Declaration of Independence. And right now, we're going to copy that Declaration of Independence, and the Insurrection Act, which is so important, was signed by Jefferson in 1807. So for all the libertarians that are going to complain with the Insurrection Act, it was our hero, Thomas Jefferson, who signed it into law. I didn't want to get angry tonight, Doug. Don was such a great guest, I didn't want to do an angry rant after Don came on. All right, Doug, I'm turning it over to you. But that's what we're doing here, man. It's about solutions. Get behind this. We'll be your freedom fighters, man. Just have our six. Help us out. Volunteer when you can. Send these letters. Kick in money. I mean, really, honestly, when we go down to the border, it's multiple days. It's like nobody's stealing money. That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. And all of our campaigns where we raise money has a ticker that you can see how much we raised. There's nothing that says $300,000. All right. God bless you all. We love you. Secure our border.
Thank you, Dustin. Look, I'm just in my head right now. I'm trying to picture Donald Trump having his head carved into Mount Rushmore, or any big mountain for that matter, and what the liberals and Democrats would do. I mean, they would literally go, I'm sorry, that's just funny to me to see if something like that happen. Of course, that's not going to happen, but if it did, oh, wow, that would just be amazing. Anyhow, that's our show for tonight, folks. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, every Tuesday and Thursday nights, 8 Central, 9 on the East Coast, we do the Douglas Ducote Show. If you haven't already done so, please go over to douglasducote.com and sign up for your email address. Follow me on Twitter, and also American Patriot by the Grace of God on Facebook and on YouTube. So, as always, please say a prayer for our men and women serving the United States military, our veterans, our law enforcement officers, first responders, their families serve too, our angel families, Blue and Gold Star families, our president, and our country. I hope you all have a wonderful and blessed night, and we'll see you next Tuesday night. I, Douglas Ducote, an American patriot by the grace of God, do solemnly swear to support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America from enemies foreign and